you very much for that kind introduction. So my presentation today is entitled Humanitarian Missions, Good, Better, Best. So I have to begin by letting everyone know that anyone who sacrifices their energy, their time, their money is doing good. So that is the entry level that we're describing today. What is good missions? But is it possible to make good missions better and even better missions best? We've all heard the Chinese proverb, give a man a fish, he eats for a day. Teach a man to fish, he eats for a lifetime. But how many of us are actually incorporating the principles of that proverb into our own humanitarian mission work? Throughout the course of this presentation, I want to pose some questions for you to consider. Does doing good always result in good outcomes? Can doing a good act actually produce a bad outcome? Which has the greater impact, the good act or the bad outcome? How can we distinguish good outcomes from bad outcomes? And are there strategies to improve outcomes from good to better to best? And that's what we're going to explore today. So thinking about these questions, I'll share some of my experiences over the past 21 years as I've been working in medical missions in Haiti. Now, from a medical missions model, the standard model is a healthcare professional will identify a country that needs medical attention. They'll assemble a group of well-qualified, well-intended healthcare professionals. They'll select a country, go to that country, and deliver direct health care in what's usually called a mobile clinic for about a week. They'll usually see between 50 and 100 patients per day, and most of the weeks are between 5 and 7 days. So that's between 250 and 700 patients. Now make no mistake about it, this is good. Many patients are seen, many patients are treated. However, is there a downside to this model that almost everyone uses? Number one, realize that foreigners don't know the language or the culture and require interpreters. And I've worked through many interpreters, and I always wondered to myself, did the interpreter accurately reflect the questions I want the patient to consider about their health? And inversely, did the interpreter provide for me an accurate answer that the patient gave them? Also, mobile clinics from foreigners are seeing patients for the first time, so there's no patient history. Mobile clinics rarely bring a laboratory or imaging, and there's a limitation of the number of checked bags airlines will provide, so the number of medicines that we can bring are limited. But the most important question I want to ask is, what about the Haitian clinic down the street? Now, they know the language, they know the culture, and these are their patients they see all the time, so they have a history of these patients. They have a functioning lab, a well-stocked pharmacy, and x-ray equipment often. But the question I also want to consider is, what is the long-term impact? We can kind of see how these mobile clinics have some limitations, but what are the long-term impacts on local clinics that are there all the time? That does create a problem. So what the local clinics are experiencing when the mobile clinics come in from foreign missions is that the foreign missions are taking their patients, reducing the revenues, and in some cases even causing closure of these clinics. So when the revenues are reduced, that impacts all the healthcare professionals that work at that clinic and impacts how they can feed their families and send their families to school. So the question is, compare the impact of a one-week mission trip to the long-term clinics that are in the country that could eventually even result in closure. Is there a better solution? I believe so. What if the local medical mission groups studied the local clinics and therefore knew what they did so we didn't duplicate their offerings? What if we partnered with these local clinics instead of competing with them? What if we work with these local clinics to raise their standard of care through education and training? What if we were able to expand the testing they do, the diagnostics they do, the treatment options that they currently have, so the breadth of their offerings are much greater? And for these mobile clinics from foreign countries who come in to provide care, what if they took a larger step and provided high-level services, not just improving the services they currently have, which is excellent, but providing higher-level services like surgeries and dentistry and optometry and physical therapy and occupational therapy? That would really dramatically impact the healthcare in the country. What would be the best approach, maybe? What if we would invest in the clinic so that they can provide these high-level services like dentistry and surgeries and eye clinics and PT and OT, etc.? And when we say invest, what do we mean by that? Are all forms of investment equal? So the typical model of investment that I see, particularly Americans and Canadians who serve in Haiti most often, provide is they obtain their donors, they get the donations, and they basically spend the donations to provide monies for clinical daily operations of these clinics. And so this really is more of a handout model. It creates dependence because the daily operations are funded by these donations, and donations are hard to get and they're hard to maintain. So what happens when the donations stop? Well, the whole system crumbles. It's not sustainable. Maybe an alternative, or best in this case, an investment model might be business startups. What if we took the money and instead of just providing the daily operations on an ongoing perpetual basis, if we invested that money into startup business? And the profits of that business funds the daily operation of the clinics. This creates financial independence, and it also provides the clinic the revenues to expand their existing offerings, and maybe even to the point to expand into these ancillary offerings like surgeries and dentistry, for example. These businesses will also reduce unemployment by employing people. It'll also sometimes provide products that are not currently available in the country if we're creative with the businesses we start. This invests in the economy of the country, and that is sustainable and good. Now, this mission model I've just described that I've noticed in medical missions can be translated into other kinds of missions as well, like feeding the hungry. So I've provided this table which shows sort of the standard model I see most often, which is good, and then a better approach, and then maybe the best approach. So the good approach is we collect donations, we purchase food, we ship the food to the foreign country, people get fed, but the reason for the underlying hunger remains. Local farmers sell less because the food you're providing is competing with them. The local grocers sell less because your food is competing with them. And the economy is crippled as a result of that, and dependence is enabled. A better approach might be to purchase food from the local farmers and grocers. People still get fed, but now the farmers and grocers are being supported, not competed with. And this stimulates the economy. The best approach might be to use that money to purchase, lease, or rent land and share crop with local farmers. And eventually give this opportunity to the farmers to purchase the land back from you so they're totally independent. People still get fed, more farmers are working, that means more food is being produced in the country, landowners are profiting, unemployed farmers are finding work on the land that we purchase or rent. This stimulates the economy to a much greater extent and reduces dependency. What about applying this model to providing clean water? The standard model is collect donations, purchase water filtration systems, and then send those over. That'll certainly provide water for those people who are the recipients of those filtration systems, but it doesn't solve the underlying thirst issues. It also competes with any local businesses who are also selling filtration systems. And then it creates a dependence on the filters that we send over. If we don't send them over, their filters don't work anymore. And what if they break? Then we have to send people over, fly them over from the United States to work on United States-based filtration systems. A better approach might be to purchase water filtration systems made locally in that country, if they're available. This also provides water for people, but the local businesses are supported, and this stimulates the economy. The best approach might be to create water filtration manufacturing businesses in the country, especially for those that don't have any at all. This is a more sustainable model. It employs more people, the systems are cheaper because they're made in country, stimulates the economy to a much greater degree, and reduces dependency. We can apply this to clothing. Instead of collecting clothing and shipping it over and giving it away, people do get clothed, but the reasons for the underlying problem remain. Local clothiers sell less, so you're competing with them, they can't feed their families, the economy is crippled, and dependence is enabled. A better approach might be to purchase the clothes from the local clothiers, still gets clothes on people's backs, clothiers are supported, this stimulates the economy. It does create dependency though on the clothiers because they're depending on the clothing that you're providing them, so it does still create some dependence. The best model might be to create clothing manufacturing and sales businesses in the country. We can ID cloth suppliers, provide sewing machines, training, and people still get clothed. But now we're going to employ seamstresses that we've trained, we're going to employ clothiers, or maybe supply product to existing clothiers. That's going to stimulate the economy and reduce dependency. What if we apply that to homelessness? The typical model might be we collect donations, we purchase all the building supplies in the United States, ship it over along with a medical mission team, not a medical mission team, but a missionary team that builds those homes. It does provide homes for the people, but it doesn't fix the underlying homelessness problem. It also competes with local hardware stores and lumber stores and maybe even puts them out of business. It keeps local laborers unemployed, cripples the economy, and enables dependence. A better model might be to collect the donations and purchase all these materials in the country itself. We still make homes for people. The local lumber companies and hardware stores are supported, and the local laborers remain unemployed, which is still a problem. And this does stimulate the economy to some degree. The best approach might be purchase the materials in country and hire local laborers. So therefore the hardware stores and labor stores are supported, the laborers are employed, this stimulates the economy and reduces dependency. So this kind of a business model is the basic approach, I believe, to the best model of humanitarian missions. What we do is we invest money, donor money, into starting the business rather than just a perpetual daily allotment that keeps the clinics or whatever it is we're supporting open. And the profits then fund these operations, whether it be a clinic or a farm or water treatment programs or homes or education or orphanages or whatever it happens to be. These businesses employ people. Employed people aren't hungry. They aren't thirsty. They aren't naked. They aren't homeless. They aren't uneducated. And these businesses stimulate the economy. People are making money, so they'll spend money, and that stimulates local businesses and the economy. This helps to convert dependence to independence. So to kind of summarize then with humanitarian missions, humanitarian efforts always require resources, money, time, and energy. But if we spend these resources wisely, we analyze things carefully and do good and not harm, we think of the long-term sustainable gains over the immediate unsustainable outcomes, we can create independence rather than continuing to enable the dependence that keeps countries dependent and keeps them poor. Together, let's change the world by converting our humanitarian missions from good to better to best.